aka Diz, and this is The Force Always.
Okay, so welcome back to the show. It's back in the land down under, Australia. Let's get into the Star Wars news. Sort of Star Wars unrelated and sort of related, but Avengers Endgame has opened here and overseas. So that's going to, I will give you a review about that later in the show, so stick around. To more news, speaking of Avengers Endgame, if you do watch it, I'm sure it's happening worldwide, but here in Australia, the only trailer to appear in Avengers Endgame was Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker trailer that was debuted about over a week ago in Chicago. Check that out. The cinematic quality, it's great. It's fantastic. So that is available at the start, if you're there early enough, for at the start of Avengers Endgame, the movie. To more news, it has been announced that the next celebration, Star Wars celebration, is in Anaheim. The exact month date has not been revealed. No doubt not for a while either. What we're going to get from that one, I'm unsure. It's going to be a very interesting time for Star Wars. It would be after the saga. Sort of the onslaught of the parks will be happening at that point, the Galaxy's Edge and things like that. So it'll be interesting what that's going to happen for that one. I know the Anaheim one, which I'd never went to, was considered a great Star Wars celebration way back now. But anyway, so that's the news for this time around. Let's get into the views. Views is not the amount of YouTube views one gets, or it's not about predictions. It's my story ideas on any aspect of the Star Wars story. This week I'm going to concentrate. Look, next week I'm going to give you a whole lot of Star Wars celebration stuff, the afterthoughts and stuff like that. But this week, because of Avengers, I'm going to really concentrate on this. Why am I concentrating on it? Because it is sort of good versus bad, which is like Star Wars in itself. Marvel is connected to Disney, connected to Star Wars, so why not? So my views is that would it be great to have Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, come off like Endgame? Without giving spoilers, I think it would be great. The only part to the story that you'll get more review later on is it needs to be a really full stop end. There's no to be continued in this Avengers Endgame, but to be continued for Episode 9 would be the most annoying thing ever. We cannot have that. It just needs a poetic full stop end. So then we can take on the next trilogy, if they're going to go on from 10, as fresh, as unknown. As I've said before, X is known as unknown. So that would be good. So it's only a small idea this week, but the story idea is that it would be great to sort of come off with an epic conclusion like Endgame, but with a bit more of a full stop. Anyway, so that's my views for this time around, my story idea. Let's get into reviews. The big one, Avengers Endgame. This is my second most anticipated film for this year. Can't say the words, but now I've got it. Second most anticipated. The first is Episode 9, and it's not really being biased. It's actually, I'm really looking forward to this. I had been saying this since the start of the year. I sort of made my choices. One was Episode 9, number 2 was Endgame. But has Endgame, this is the review, 8.5 out of 10. It was a really good film. Yes, really good film. If you're going to look at it, break it down, this is not spoilerish, but it's a partial spoiler. Partial. I'm not going to give away points, plot points and stuff like that. But the first chunk, I wouldn't say third, I wouldn't say quarter, but chunk, it's a little bit drawn out. But it's interesting information. For your hardcore Marvel fans, you will love it. For someone that's interested in see where the story goes, you'll love it. But it's just a regular audience goer, I think you may just be a little bit bored with it. But it's a little bit drawn out at the start. Then there's the epic sort of concluding sequence, and it's what Marvel does best in their sort of style. Very animated, very Marvel look today, and it's quite a good end. The only thing I'll say, without giving anything away, is it has a poetic way of storytelling. And I mean by that with emotion. It's got a lot of emotion, lots of information. The poetic ending, though, just should have ended a tad earlier than where it ended. It was a nice end, but I think it should have ended about a scene back. If you know what I'm saying, a scene back would have been a perfect ending for this particular story. The only thing I think what it's missing is I would have liked to see pay homage a bit more directly in this particular film to Stan Lee. I mean, he's always made the sort of odd comic cameo in a funny sort of way, or fun way, or rock and roll way. You know, just fun, let's call it. But I would have liked him be connected in this film a bit stronger, especially coming after the death. That's what it's missing, I think. But I think what it's missing also is the poetic ending. It just ended a bit too much. It needed to just take one scene back and it would have been perfect. Some characters didn't get much show in here. I did notice that if you notice some of the actors who are directors in this film, like Jon Favreau and Tico, they got a bit of screen time, which I thought was a little bit unfair, but it still worked for the film, still worked for the story. But definitely it's a really good film. I don't know if it's the type of story that you're going to watch in 10 years' time and, you know, enjoy watching it. Because really, especially the first chunk of long drawn-out information type of storytelling, it sort of sets you up from where we left it off. And I don't know if it's going to be interesting to re-watch that. But it seemed to be... it's still a very good story. You can't really rate this low at all. They've done it well. Some interesting points happen, you know, with Thor during the film with Thor and towards the end, as you may see. That's it. I think a standout, I thought, was sort of a standout, but it sort of was a little bit jarring, but it was a standout, is how they showed the Hulk in this one. It was really as real as what you could have to be. And speaking of real, when the actors were made to look younger or older, that technology is flawless. That's probably the standout. It's the aging technology, special effects that really stood out. Hulk really was good, but his eyes, I think, looked a little bit animated, but it was a very unusual but very successful way of having Hulk in this particular film. So again, 8.5 out of 10 for Avengers Endgame. That's my second most anticipated film. The next one is going to be in December. Just another piece of news here for December. It's going to be December 19. So you know that I'll be in the cinema all day for that one. And December 20 is going to be for America. So again, I don't know how, but Australia gets a tad before America, which is unusual. But anyway, that's good for us. Anyway, so that's the reviews for this summer. Let's get into interviews. Let's get sort of partly into where we were last week. Star Wars Celebration, Chicago. It really did bring on the cold there. It is definitely the windy city. Charmaine, my beautiful wife, and myself really felt the onslaught of the cold and the wind, but it was still, you know, pretty good. I'll give you more information of reviews and things like that next week on the show. But the two questions was just 2Q. What can Star Wars Celebration improve on? Well, in my basic, straightforward opinion, the organisers of this event, which I'm assuming that Repop and or Grow Ticks are in combination with each other, they really need to get their act together with a lot of things. The app, it was playing foul to a lot of people. The queues were just way too long and not organised enough, and also that the event had a lot of people disappointed with the lottery. I think that was a really bad idea. I don't think it's sort of that was announced after you bought the ticket. I think that should be announced before or during when you get the ticket, because that will really persuade people coming or not coming. The organisation of the event was pretty bad, but it is a hard event, I must admit. It's a hard event to organise, but the whole lottery thing was a real sour note in my behalf. And as far as I'm concerned, other parts to the event, which I'll tell you more about next week on the show, was a bit of a sour note for international guests anyway, like myself and anyone who's travelling overseas all that way just to see it, the Star Wars celebration in Chicago. So that's what they can improve on, is a better company, or that company to just get their act together and not have things being trialed there. But anyway, and my next question, what was the highlight of Star Wars Celebration? I'm going to pinpoint this as what I think everyone really remembered out of this particular event. It was probably the hardest event to get into. It was probably the most busiest event to get into, panel that is. The Star Wars Episode 9, as we'll know it as then. Now it's known as the Rise of Skywalker panel, you could say. Probably when the original actor for Emperor Palpatine came in out again and said, "Roll it again." I think that was the pinpoint highlight. I mean, that was definitely a highlight for myself and for a lot of people out there. There was definitely other highlights. The fun of seeing the Mandalorian, the preview, that was great. Just seeing the games that are coming out, even though they weren't super duper when I saw them at that point in time, I thought they were still very good to see. The show floor, the exhibit floor, is really, really good. I just wish we had more time in there, but you know, when you have lines holding you up, not allowing yourself to get into there, that creates a problem. But that was definitely a highlight. The exhibit floor was great. But that's the answer to that question. Now, that will be the show for this time around. Here on a weekly basis. Subscribe to the channel, like, share the video. I'll give you the Star Wars news, views, reviews, interviews of all sorts. And until next time, which is pretty much next week, keep rocking.